Hi, today we're going to be talking about my recent trip to Hawaii. I am still a little jet lagged. I only got back yesterday and I flew overnight. So my body is still kind of integrating and coming back to where I live in Colorado. However, I received so many amazing messages while I was on Hawaii for 10 days, the big island of Hawaii. And I really felt called to make this. I recorded several things live there, channeling live. I had some amazing messages from whales come through and from the ocean itself. And then I just had a lot of amazing downloads come through from different parts of the island that I visited. However, I was just feeling called to do this like kind of recap video of the main messages that are coming from the island right now. And so with that, I've just actually done a little meditation. I've tapped into the energy island, and this message has to come through today. Normally, I would wait until I feel a little more rested myself to get on video and have had time to process everything that happened before I, yeah, get on a video and film. However, it's like you're the most connected to the island right now and you need to do the video. So, here we are, we're doing the video. And with that, I will just open it up to whatever the island wants to say. And I'll, of course, like if I'm called to share my personal experience, kind of highlights the messages, I will do that as well, always with the intention that you are here watching this for a reason. And there, if you're here watching this, there's probably a message for you that's going to help you in some way in your life. And that's always my intention, sharing all this beautiful information. So we'll start with that. This trip to Hawaii, I really realized just being able to travel, first of all, is an amazing, beautiful experience. And you get to see how your energy changes and interacts with different energies of different places on the planet. They all have their own unique energy signatures that are co-created by the people that live there, but also from the land itself, the memories that are there. And it's just kind of like a mishmash almost of different energies, but it's different for every place on the planet. So it's really, it can open up new wisdom, new insights about yourself anytime you travel. And Hawaii in particular, especially the big island of Hawaii, which tends to be the island with the least amount of development, the most amount of open land and open space. And for me, it is like a natural frequency that I have not really experienced in many other places on the world. Hawaii seems to be one of the last places on Earth that really you can tap into like natural frequencies that haven't been so distorted by man-made technology and then just like the emotions of people. And part of this is because especially the big island of Hawaii, I don't know how much you guys know. You may know something about Hawaii, you may know nothing about Hawaii. um but so my throat is like there's some throat chakra stuff coming through. So I keep clearing my throat. But first, it's like fresh land. So there's an active volcano on the big island of Hawaii, and it's always erupting in some form or another. I mean, it kind of stops and starts, but the entire island chain of Hawaii was formed by essentially kind of one hot spot beneath the ocean where the lava, the new, or like, lava is new earth that doesn't have the same kind of memories as the soil that maybe is in, say, Colorado, that many people have touched and walked upon and had many experiences on the soil, the earth and all the molecules on this earth soil contain memories of the past experiences of that place. And so where there's fresh lava flowing, it is fresh earth being like born And that's really interesting because I've never really tapped into that. I'm getting a message that I'll need to look more into like lava and that kind of thing, but that's not really the point of the message today. However, it is one of the reasons why we can tap in if you are attuned to kind of like the subtler energies of yourself and the energetics of a place that you're at. You can tap into more natural organic frequencies of life, which are really the original harmonious codes for how life is supposed to be on earth, from yeah, this perspective of harmony and having all things thrive. And so right now what we're seeing on the earth is like a really big imbalance, first of all within our own selves, and then you can see it on the world stage as well, of how there's just a lot of what I would call disharmonious energies, this inner conflict that so many of us struggle with. I mean, it can be the most simple thing as experiencing like you have a desire in your heart to do something with your life, and then you have like maybe an inner conflict in your head of why that's not possible, or the doubt and all these things, and the pressures of society and all these other things cause inner conflicts within ourselves. And that's really not our natural state. Our natural state is to be in harmony. So it's not that a person that is in their natural state. I don't really know what else to call it because as a friend pointed out to me recently, these words that I'm using like natural and organic have also kind of been like hijacked a little bit, and there's like a man-made association with that may or not be positive depending on your perspective. But really we're just talking about like, yeah, our true truth of who we are beneath all the conflict, beneath all the distortion, and the disharmony that we experience again within ourselves and on the external. And so the island is a great place to go to, again, if you are really in tune with yourself and the energies around you, which if you're not, if you don't feel like you can do that, that is also part of returning to your natural state, is really owning that yes, we have our physical senses, but we have also many what I would call energetic senses that are meant to help us in this life. And it's just the original template and design for humans to be able to tap into subtle energies, feel subtle energies, um and even go as far as like being telepathic and some of these things that may seem a little like woo woo or out there or science fiction or whatever only happens in the movies. We all actually have different kind of psychic abilities that are just again what I would call energetic senses, that are meant to help us, and that's part of our original divine template, natural state. And that's really what the island was showing me, is that, in order for us as a species, as humanity, to really thrive going forward, we are going to have to return to this state of harmony, which I can imagine if you're watching this video, you're a person that knows that deep down there's a recognition of like, yeah, we as a species, and we already are without really having to make too much effort, because it's the natural way for us to just always come back to the state of harmony no matter what. I think it's just like innate in our DNA, honestly. So what's coming up now is like there are a lot of different strands of DNA within us, and a lot of our DNA is not really well understood by science, and there a lot of people have this term called like junk DNA. And those are like the part of the DNA that science doesn't currently understand. And what is really being shown to me right now, and this didn't come through on the island, but it wants to share right now, is that we are meant to have all those strands of DNA online and active and actively helping to co-create the reality. And what that is our natural state is when we have like basically full functioning of our full potential, which is tapping into our energetic senses, getting all of that online, because then we can really sense where we may be out of harmony with ourselves and others. um, and this is the true path to abundance. So I was really just receiving a lot of messages on the island about, what separates us from our true nature. And our true nature is the abundant, thriving species that we are meant to be. But so many of us don't have that experience because we are separated from it. And we are separated from that really by stuck emotions and trauma. It's like a like they go together hand in hand. There's a lot of focus on the limiting beliefs, and I talk a lot about that, but what the island sharing with me is it's more about the ability to be in the flow with natural reality and our emotions. So that okay, there's just like so much coming through. Um, and this is what was actually, I've already kind of been moving this way in my own practice, and what the offers that I share is that working with the emotions and the body and the natural state and natural frequencies is more important than the limiting beliefs, because those just fall away when you have the ability to alchemize the emotions around it. The belief systems seem almost like as a way to control things. So that was the other big message, like what separates us from our natural state of being and being in harmony and being in that state of abundance is really judgment was one thing that came up, and control. So most people think of judgment as a way, well, maybe you haven't made that connection yet, but it's being utilized as a way to control ourselves and other people and the reality. And when we are in a state of control or attempting to control things that we actually have zero control over, which can be really scary to the traumatized individual that has a lot of unhealed trauma, because the number one thing that trauma instills in us is this kind of like an inability to control our circumstances, that there was something that was too overwhelming for you at some point in time, or your ancestors. A lot of the trauma lives in the DNA, which is part of that. The junk DNA that's shut off is separated from our natural state because it's not actually getting the life force it needs to operate and be harmonious and online. And that is due to the trauma that we have not processed, felt, and integrated, so that we can restore our full um it's really about opening up our full potential through our full life force energy. So when we have unhealed trauma, it distorts our life force energy that we're actually meant to have an abundance of. This is why you see diseases and disorders and all these things that represent the inner conflict and just the dimming overall, the dimming and siphoning and um what is the word, like it's like diverting our life force energy to spaces and times and things that are are not in the present moment, and are causing us to just continue to create that past reality of trauma. Those are like what I'm being shown is like really like a trauma loop, is your life force energy being drawn to the point in time where there was trauma, where it's basically a freezing of your life force energy, your soul energy into a different space and time, until it can be resolved. And then you bring the life force present. Um, and so the emotional body is super, super important with that. And it can be very tricky to get to, even if you're a person that feels like you're really in tune with your emotions. Um, most people with the island saying, even me, maybe I'm only scratching the surface of maybe 15% of my emotional capacity. So the emotional capacity and the life force energy are very much like not one and the same, but they are like best friends and they need one another. And so there has been so much, first of all, heavy emotions that are too much for any given human being to process in one moment of time. And then there has been no education on how to go back to those experiences that, it is natural, I think, for humans to experience a small degree of trauma in their life of where they were out of control and things were too much for them to handle or process in the moment. And they, oh, like as so the survival mechanisms kick in, which are the control aspects, and those are meant to be used, but be used in a sparingly way. And what has happened to humanity is that we have actually adopted these control mechanisms as our lifestyle, as our dominant way of living, and they've become normalized. And most of us now have a really hard time letting go of control mechanisms because first of all, there's such a fear and overwhelming amount of emotional energy that needs to be worked through. So I said earlier, like for me, they're showing me I have about 15% of my emotional capacity to feel. And let me tell you, I feel like I feel a lot, but apparently there's a lot more. And most people are operating anywhere from 5 to 10% of their emotional capacity. Some people that are so severely traumatized, um, and these are the people that have really, really severe mental health challenges, is what the island's sharing with me, are probably at maybe 1 to 2% of their emotional capacity. Um, so, okay. So much. Okay, now there's message. I visited a really amazing waterfall while I was there. And it was share. I didn't record this, so the island really wants me to record this now of like the reason why waterfalls are amazing. I don't know if you've heard these studies of like if you stand near a waterfall, or even like rain, when there's like a rainstorm outside, it releases what are called negative ions into the air, which are incredibly healing to the human body, the mind, and the soul. It like honestly, what the island is sharing with me is those negative ions that you can get from grounding with the earth, but there's something more potent about the water element that comes from the rainstorms and the waterfalls. And honestly, just the spray of the ocean is the ion. And it almost acts as like the word is like the stem cell of where, just for your mind, it's not really a stem cell, but it's like the idea that molecule of energy can essentially soothe any ailment. It can really heal at the source uh any tension, any disharmony, which again shows up as illnesses or all kinds of different things. And that's why so many people, when they go to visit the ocean, they feel better, just like body, mind, and soul, because it's the negative ions and then actually the salt in the water. And I I have a whole video about the ocean itself, and that's going to be released at a different. I don't know when I'm going to actually release this video, so maybe depending on when I release this video, there might be some other videos like from my whale channeling and the ocean channeling that I did live that I recorded there on the spot. Um that anyways, you will get to see those. So we're not going to go too much into that today. But then what they really want to share is those negative ions are just so soothing and healing for any kind of ailment. And that's because they are encoded with unconditional love, which is amazing. And that's in line with things that I've channeled before, that unconditional love is really the only healer. on the planet. Like, it doesn't matter what healing modality you're using, it's gonna be most effective if it feels like unconditional love or it's actually utilizing unconditional love. Okay, and so the negative ions that you receive from the spray of water, like again, from a rainstorm, the ocean, or a waterfall are really the most potent ones that they're sharing with me. That's the most healing. And the reason why is that it has something to do with the free fall of water. So, like when water is flowing down a stream, it's kind of like got, there's banks to it and it's kind of dammed up and it's being directed. Um, but the free fall of a waterfall is it's just literally, it's the same thing you would think of you as a human kind of being in a free fall. Most people are scared of that, but that's really what it means to live in a state of surrender and trust. And being in true flow is letting go of all of that control. And then you are able to like control blocks unconditional love is what I didn't get that message on the island, but now that's what they're like sharing with me. Because I had to receive all these little messages for me to be able to come back and bring them all like full circle and package them up for you in a way that makes sense. So, really, anywhere you're holding on to unhealthy control is going to separate you from unconditional love. And that is necessary to a certain degree. It's part of the Earth curriculum, actually. So, like, this is what humans were always designed to come here to learn was to experience a degree of separation from unconditional love that may be greater than other lifetimes and to find ways to still connect with that unconditional love, which is our true nature. It is the highest truth of the entire universe is this unconditional love, and it is a framework for everything and every single dimension and reality, including this one. And so healing is really about coming back to the natural state, but so is success and all of these things that so many people are out there chasing. And it really has to deal with your ability to allow unconditional love in. Okay, so this is the new part, more new stuff coming in because I've also been really reflecting on just personally for me. Oh man, gosh, there's so much I want to say. Okay, they're like, just breathe. Okay, just sharing honestly with you, like I have done an extraordinary amount of healing work on myself, especially clearing blocks to abundance and making money, specifically in my business. So I've been able to manifest money without doing anything, which is amazing, which most people like would love to have, and that's great. But I as a soul, I'm like, I need to figure out the mechanics of being able to create resources and money on demand, not being open to like just whenever the universe decides to gift me with a windfall, which those are amazing. But I was like, for me, it's like I need, so they're sharing with me, this is my ego, but um that I need to, I want to be able to say that I can also create things on demand in order to really feel like I've mastered what it really means to create on as a human on this earth. Um, so wow. And so that they're sharing with me is, you know, when we are so tied to making money, so again, the abundance and our natural state and harmony and thriving is about health, wealth, all of those things you consider in a life that is like, I'm thriving. And sometimes our ego is so caught up in controlling how that happens that we actually block the free flow of the negative ions, which are like the abundance. It's like you don't actually even need me to help you heal. Um, you can do it all on your own. And, of course, I'm like, my ego's like, well, but it can be very helpful to have a guide. Of course, it can be really helpful to have a guide. Um, However, if you would just go sit at a waterfall every day for a year breathing negative ions, you can still heal yourself, like, literally heal your DNA, like, when we talk about ascension, that's what it is a healing the DNA and restoring more of that connection to unconditional love, and most people actually think they have a connection to unconditional love, but it will only be revealed actually how little unconditional love you have in your life once you've started to open that up. And I know that's been my experience too, where it's like I totally thought I loved myself and all these things before starting my like subconscious healing journey with, theta healing that I practice and the other tools and modalities of energy healing. I thought I loved myself 100%. And I've seen now after I've healed and more, I'm allowing more love actually into my life, the true energy of love, the authentic, natural energy of love, not like some sort of control mechanism of like, I don't know, giving to get things and this like very transactional relationship that most people think love is. Um, that's just a fear-based distortion. Um, okay, where was I going with that? Anyways, let me just regather my thoughts. hmm Okay. So if you're watching this video and you're like feeling like a little bit blocked when I'm even talking about this, I'm like, what do you mean I don't have access to unconditional love? Just know again, so utilizing my own self as an example, I've done like a lot, like I've done a very intensive healing for 3 years now with the energy of unconditional love. And they're saying I'm still only allowing about 40% of the unconditional love available to me in my life. And I'm like, wow, I experienced so much love compared to where I was at. That was the point. Is that I was, back, before I started my energy healing journey and really getting in touch with true love. I thought I had love in my life. And it's just like one of those things where humans don't realize what they're missing. And that's actually one of the most beautiful things about humans is that will and the human spirit and the will to survive and man the ability to endure really hard circumstances. Life on earth is not supposed to be as hard as it is right now. We are not supposed to be as separated from love, from the resources, from all the amazing things that are here for us as we are. And so if you're here watching this video, I can almost guarantee you that it's part of your soul path and mission to restore that for yourself and the earth. Because ultimately, like the earth, oh wow, and the island sharing is like, earth will continue on no matter what happens to humans in the future. And if we continue on this path of disharmony, it's just going to get harder and harder for humans to survive. That's why we see, skyrocketing rates of disease despite all these modern technologies, because the technology is not built with an understanding of the true, authentic, natural state. And yeah, if you're watching this video, like I don't ever want to tell you what you're here to do and what you're here to experience, but I can imagine that I think you're drawn to watching this video because you're here to experience the true natural potential and natural state of being a human. Um, so that brings me to my next point was just that I also so humans aren't supposed to have a life that's this hard and this challenging, and it's amazing that we've been able to get by as long as we have. And however, the real issue right now is that our egos have identified with this state of such low levels of love in our life and like all the good things that come along with being loved. Now that's our identity, and so it's become really challenging for us to let go of because we are too much in our identity. We're too much in our identity as humans, and that identity is too much identified with the control structures that separate us from the natural flow. and the natural healing abilities. Okay, gosh, there's so much. So those negative ions, so I was saying you could go sit in front of a waterfall for a year. I mean, it might take you longer than that to actually heal, but you would be healing every day. And the body has the capability to almost generate the same kind of molecules and healing energies through like the stem cells or whatever. I don't pretend to be an expert of like all the different facets of the human body, um, and what they're called, but I know when we are in our natural state and we've got our life force present with us, it activates a similar technology in our body is what's coming through this like ability to heal anything really rapidly because we are in touch with our true nature. And so even like the healing journey, if you're on a healing journey, I imagine it's been one that has been lengthy, um, or you've spent a long time suffering and just being like, this is I just have to be okay with this because this is how if I were to go into that negative place of this really sucks. This is really hard, then you wouldn't be able to get by. So that in itself is a control mechanism. However, it's just, that's the true meaning of being in that survival mode. It's just you do what you have to do to survive. And so the ego, this is also where the ego gets in the way is by judging even that, by judging being in the control mechanisms and not wanting to admit that we are controlling as much as we are controlling. And that just kind of perpetuates the whole cycle. Um, okay. So even for that reason of sitting in front of like a waterfall or sitting in front of the ocean, where it is like free flowing energy that is not controllable by you. It is creating the negative ions that are healing, but also it is like it's teaching you on a subtle energetic level of how to let go of that control, which is pretty amazing. So we can learn a lot from free flowing water. It was part of that message coming through. And let's see, there was one other thing. Hmm. So really like fear and judgment are the biggest blocks. Well, the and judgment is really the way we use judgment and the way we judge ourselves and others is a fear-based thing. And anytime you're doing that, know that you are in a control mechanism that's separating you from your natural state and your natural state of abundance. Oh, that's where I was going with that. Okay. So I was talking about hmm, there's just a lot of fear in this message at this time. So when there's a lot of fear, I have trouble reading the message. So doesn't it's not my fear, so I just sense that there's a lot of fear maybe coming up for some of you watching this, and maybe you don't even realize it because it's so normal for you, and that's probably part of the message as well, is that we have normalized living in a fear-based state, and, you know, there would be no need to control if we fully trusted unconditional love, which is that free flow. When we let go of the control, we're in the free flow. Um, okay, so that was the last part. Was I was telling you my story of how I have been a little frustrated in my with my business and because I preach that when you clear things, when you heal things, you tap more into your natural ability to create. And when you clear out these limiting beliefs around money and so forth, you should be able to make more money. And I have, and it still has been very inconsistent. And so I've found my ego judging that experience a lot. and saying for the amount of healing work and clearing that I've done, especially around abundance, shouldn't I see more results in the 3D if that's what I'm teaching is true and authentic. And so there were many things that came through about that. First of all, was like the avoidance of the frustration and the emotion itself. And this is so really endemic is what they're saying, endemic to spirituality circles and personal growth circles and people that are on this like growth healing path to judge their work and the effort they're putting in based on the physical results in the 3D reality right now. And I've had so many conversations with friends that are in on the same journey that have had similar frustrations of like, look at all this work I've put in, and the physical reality hasn't shifted to the amount that reflects the energetic input that I've put in. And what you need to know about that and what has been coming through for me is that sometimes it's not always about the physical result. And that is programming that is actually part of the ego control of like, if this result does not happen in my life, just taking money because it's an easy thing. You see all these people online marketing, like, I cleared my limiting beliefs. I've even done this recently, and that's why they're like they're using me, as an example here today. But that's okay, I'm here for it. I'm here, I'm an open book because I don't have anything to hide. I don't I have my own stuff that I'm going through because I'm on this journey with you. I might have cleared a couple more things than you have. I might be a step ahead of you, if you want to call it that, just because I've walked a different path. But anybody you see online is still having these kinds of things come up. So realize that when you're on social media in particular, but when you're like emphasizing of like, I need to make $10,000 a month, or I need to make six figures in my business is very, very common to have like a benchmark of like, if I put in all this effort and I don't reach that physical benchmark, then I start to judge my journey, my path. I start to really go even more into doubt and frustration. And so sometimes what they're sharing with me is there's actually so much suppressed emotion and anger and grief that it's more valuable to you as a human to feel that anger and that frustration and then the grief that's underneath that of like, I put in a lot of effort and it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. That actually might be the gift within all of it because you're releasing that anger, that grief through an avenue that might actually be gentler than releasing it with knowledge of the original reason why it's there. And what that means is, if you were to really know, for example, a lot of us are again clearing the DNA. So this is like trauma that happened 50 generations ago, and you don't have memory of that, but it lives in your DNA. And you have probably experienced energetic cycle of that particular trauma not being released in your DNA through your lens and your perspective. However, if you were to really realize the real trauma that happened to your ancestor that caused that separation in the first place, it may be very well re-traumatizing to you. And I've actually had that happen a couple of times because I can tap in with my psychic abilities to the original memories a lot of times of what caused a certain trauma. And it's not always pleasant. And you don't always need to know. You don't always need to know that original harm. So just know that there are different agendas of like your soul, and what it means to thrive is so much more than money. It really is. And I know, and the island sharing, like, yes, we understand that money has become such a hyper focus because it is one of the tangible ways we can measure our ability to survive in this world, and you do need it to survive in this world. And um there's so much more to thriving beyond money. There's too the island sharing me with me, there's just too much of a hyper focus on money, which is causing even more distortion, causing even more disharmony, because people are having to suppress their heart, but also, so this was another thing, and this is a different video that the whales were sharing with me, the balance between the masculine and the feminine energies. There's huge distortions in that balance between masculine and feminine energies on the planet, which is also why you see the inner conflict within and all around, is that being out of balance. And that is also part of being in harmony, is having your energetic makeup being balanced, your unique masculine and feminine energies in proportion and harmony for you and your energetic makeup. So we'll post that video at a different time. um but the masculine and feminine balance is, it's impossible when you're just chasing the dollar. And so not everything's about money, and not everything's about the 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 physical reality. It's really the last thing to shift. It is. So that's why there can be a lag time, and the lag time was designed on purpose. So this is new. I've channeled this before, but the island is sharing again, like, you want that lag time between what you are creating and what you're experiencing, because if you didn't, um it would not be good for humanity, because most people are not creating from their natural state. They're creating from this disharmonious state of unhealed trauma and control. And so the lag time actually gives you time to course correct, and for things to come in slower gives you time to course correct. So there's that aspect to it. And then the last thing I think that I'm going to be sharing with this video is really just this idea. So it's not always about the physical result and the reality to as the measuring stick for how well your efforts have been, I don't know, received. And letting go of this judgment and the fear around that, of like putting an effort to something if it's not guaranteed a certain outcome. It's like by even wanting a guarantee, you are still operating out of control. So they're just sharing all of this to show how deep this control really goes. It's permeating everything, and even the hyper focus on money is a way to control. And so it's really about like releasing the need to control, coming back into your natural state of harmony with yourself, your DNA, the universe, and the earth. And that will require you to balance your masculine and feminine. And if you're focused just on money, most people are going to be way too in their masculine energy, even if you're a woman. And so when you start to follow your heart and your intuition, and it leads you to something, and it leads you to frustration or disappointment or sadness, that actually might be the result that you're looking for, even though your ego is like, what the heck? I followed the same steps as Susie over here, and she made 6 figures, and all I got was disappointment and frustration. Can you trust that that experience is for you as well, and actually the result that you need to restore optimal harmony? Because that's what we're really coming back to. It's like the money and all of that stuff is actually a symptom level of the disharmony and the lack and the scarcity. And so by coming into, again, that alignment with the harmony within, it's going to require different things, and without the ego being at the driver's seat all the time. and allowing the emotions to flow when the ego gets upset and disappointed because it's the emotional block that allows us that keeps us stuck again in those trauma loops of control. So the more you can allow the emotions to flow, free flow, in the amounts that are healthy for you. So again, it's like you can't just be like, I'm letting go of all my control mechanisms today. Ta-da, I'm done. Like it doesn't work like that. It does need to be released in layers because it would be too jarring to your human body if you were to just like do a complete, it's not even like a 180 or 360. It would just it's too drastic. The human body wouldn't be able to survive that. So yes. What else do we want to say? Hmm. And so, having an intention to create harmony in your life is not something a lot of people do. And ultimately, it's one of the highest intentions that you can have because it's the closest to the natural state. This is not saying that I think a lot of people that are in the personal growth and manifestation and spirituality circles, again, are very judgmental of like, if I'm not getting positive outcomes in my life, if I'm still dealing with hard emotions, if I'm still healing my trauma, that I'm not doing this right. Um, or any type of talk like that where you're making a judgment call based on your outcomes, you are not in flow with life. Being in flow with life is about being in harmony, and it's not like even when earth and is in its most highest potential, and even when you are in your highest potential, that doesn't mean that life is perfection and doesn't have ups and downs or challenges or things to learn. In this reality, there's always going to be an ebb and a flow. However, again, it's more extreme. It's more extreme than it needs to be right now. We're not meant to live with these low lows, and like we are getting some nicer peaks of higher energies, but we're pulled back down just as easily because um of all the stuck emotions and the stuck trauma, and the stuck life force that's just repeating things like subconsciously without any conscious knowledge or effort. And so the more you can have that intention to have harmony in your life, is really one of the highest intentions that they're sharing with me, because it's not, again, it's not about like saying the parts of you or the parts of your life that have been challenging or hard are going to go away, even if you're at your peak potential, even if you're thriving. There's still going to be a certain amount of stress in your life, for example. There's still going to be a certain amount of, yeah, things that come up that are new for you, and they may be challenging, maybe hard. There's still going to be loss. There's still going to be grief. There's still going to be anger. All these things are still going to come up, but what allows the harmony is the flow and being in flow with that. Okay, and I think, is there anything else the island wants to share? No. And see how my ego is judging this video. Just again, they're just using me as an example today because there was some times in this video where I had to pause and try to clear the fear around this conversation. Because the reality is, when we talk about giving up control, that in itself can spark fear, big time. Because again, that's normal for us, and it's how we've created safety in our life is through the control. But really, the real safety is being in flow with unconditional love and knowing in your resiliency, knowing that you have the ability to heal, to feel anything, and to really be able to experience that unconditional love is what makes it all worth it, beyond the money, beyond like, I don't know, the weight loss or whatever it is, like these very like hard benchmarks that we judge ourselves for if we're hitting it or not. Flow, harmony. Gosh. Oh yeah, and letting go of judgment. Like judgment is literally one of the number one ways that you block yourself from being in harmony. Um, and there's all kinds of like, even like what I would call subsets of control mechanisms that we utilize just to avoid judgment in itself beyond like the actual emotions of the experience. So there's just a lot of layers to this, and we're coming back into our natural state of harmony, and it's naturally happening on the earth. Oh, and that was one thing I didn't finish my thought earlier is that the earth is going to continue no matter what happens to humanity, but the earth needs us just as much as we need her. And we are a part of the earth. It's not a separate thing from us. And we are meant to be here, and we are meant to thrive in harmony all together. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be hard times or any of those things, but it's not supposed to be this hard. And so, really returning to a place of ease and flow with life, it lies in the emotions and the healing work without you judging your progress based on what's happening in the 3D. Because the last part of this that's really been shown to me is that, yes, you create your reality, but this is a co-creation here on earth. And so you're constantly co-creating with the energy that's around you. And so, as long as we have people on this planet that are really hurting big time to the point where they are at that 1 or 2%, it's always going to have an impact on the possibilities and potentials for the planet as a whole of what you can create. Um, so, and the last part that's coming through, gosh, this has been a long video, but the last part that's coming through is, really going beyond limiting beliefs, that it's really not about the belief systems. The beliefs actually, are part of the control mechanism. And I mean, beliefs matter a lot and they create a lot of things for us, but it's not the ultimate creator of your life. You are. And most beliefs are just remnants of the past and how we've been able to survive without being connected to our natural state fully. I mean, you're always connected a little bit. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But I'm going to end the video here. This is a long one, but I hope it really serves you well. I know it's been really interesting for me to open up to receive this information on like true thriving on Earth. That's what I'm here for. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and if you need additional help, support, resources, they are all in the links below the video. Bye for now.